this chat about Destiny 2. It's been quite a while since I actually did any, I guess, chatting about Destiny 2 really. I guess the Curse of Osiris was the last time, although as we'll kind of chat about, I guess the Curse of Osiris was not really a great success in the Destiny kind of releases that they've had. We're coming up to the point where Warmind is going to come out. The next expansion, May the 8th, is coming, which is in just a few days' time. And I think this is coming at a time where the game definitely needs a bit of a revamp, I guess, or a little bit of tinkering with, and a few changes to be made. We've had I guess 9 months of Destiny 2 since its release. I think it was like September, so yeah, about that, 8 or 9 months since its release, and one DLC expansion down. And while I think Destiny 2 was met with a lot of positivity at release and generally critically quite well received, as well as by the kind of players of Destiny 1, I think it's kind of a few things have maybe come up in recent times which people aren't quite so happy with. So I guess where we need to start off is back with Destiny 1 to just, I guess, have a little bit of a reminder with that. Now, Destiny 1, I think, has certainly got everybody who plays Destiny 2 currently, and I feel like everybody who is necessarily, not necessarily complaining without merit about Destiny 2, but certainly I see a lot of people kind of making out like it's the worst thing ever. Maybe they've got slightly rose-tinted glasses for the way Destiny 1 was, because in general it was pretty rough to say the least. When Destiny 1 first came, if you remember, with like the story content I think that it came with there, like it generally was kind of cool because obviously all the enemies were new and you were learning lots of things about the world, but in general the storytelling was pretty poor, and certainly the ending of Destiny 1 was really poor as well. It did not end very well, and it wasn't until we had the Taken King expansion that I think people felt that they actually got the storytelling right in that world. We'd had a couple of expansions before then which really didn't hit the right mark. I think it was the Dark Below and the House of Wolves, I think, were the two. And while they did interesting, like they brought in interesting characters and things like that, they really were just they were Destiny 1 stuff. They didn't feel like the story missions were not really that good story missions. They didn't have that many interesting like characters or dialogue or cutscenes or anything like that, and a lot of stuff was fed back, and I really feel like Taken King was definitely the peak of Destiny 1 with what it did. And one of the reasons why I think it did that was because it had this really interesting new area in the Dreadnought. The story was really interesting. It featured Cade 6 heavily, who is, I think most people will agree, by far the best character in Destiny, or at least sort of the funniest and most interesting. And the others are also interesting as well, but he was the standout. And it's important to remember, like, maybe we've been spoiled a little bit by Destiny 2, but until the Taken King expansion, we barely learn anything about the Vanguard at all, basically. They rarely spoke unless you were handing stuff into them, I guess. But certainly I think Taken King did well. And then we had the what was that, the Iron Lords or whatever the hell it was called, I can't remember now. And was good. I wouldn't say it hit the same heights as The Taken King, but it was good, and it was certainly enjoyable. I wouldn't say it quite hit the same notes and like the new area, because it was more an extension of the Earth area. It didn't really feel like it was that new. So then we obviously moved on to Destiny 2, which had new and interesting areas. On the whole, I really like Destiny 2 for what it did. The core element of Destiny has always been the gunplay. That's always been why I think a lot of people keep coming back to it, because it's just a really nice feeling game to play, and that kind of mini addiction to getting, you know, extra loot and new stuff, and it's kind of like that gameplay loop that you come back for. I'd almost call it more akin to something like Diablo than maybe other first-person shooters that you have, where you know, it's fun to change up your skills and try out different weapons and things like that in the game, as well as cosmetically see how your character changes as you kind of go through. But yeah, Destiny 2 I think did really well. It was an interesting story to play through. We saw lots of the characters, we learned a lot about them as, you know, we lost the light, and kind of seeing how that goes. I felt like the ending was quite satisfying of it, definitely way more so than Destiny 1. That was pretty terrible. Yeah, I just feel overall that they got a lot of things right with Destiny 2. The Curse of Osiris DLC, though, for me was, it felt like a return to the opening DLC for Destiny 1. The story was not good. I think they had a lot of possibilities with what they were doing, but they just didn't seem to use any of them. They recycled a lot of stuff. You know, most of the bosses were, because it was a computer simulation, it was like recycled bosses that you'd met in, you know, Destiny 2 elsewhere. And the areas themselves just didn't feel interesting in any way, shape or form, in my opinion. I think Mercury looked nice, but it was so small that it didn't even really feel like a new area. I recently played through Curse of Osiris again on PlayStation. I originally played on PC, and it was boring as hell. I can't tell you, it doesn't get better a second time. The Osiris character is this kind of legendary guardian who you basically don't meet until right at the end, and there's nothing really interesting about him at all. Sagira, the kind of ghost, I feel like they tried to do like a kind of, I don't know, I feel like they tried to make her like a bit sassy and stuff like that, but just failed. In fact, Failsafe as a character from the main Destiny 2 game is far superior, I think, in that respect, than Sagira is. And yeah, it just really didn't hit any good notes for me on Curse of Osiris. And there's obviously been a lot of other things which people have been unhappy with. The way that you know, the I guess the way the stuff with the loot drops and stuff like that, the way experience is gained through certain things, little tweaks, which I'm not a hardcore player myself. You know, I don't drop in every single day or even every single week sometimes and play multiple hours. But there are a lot of people out there who do, and I feel like for those guys, they've certainly felt like they've been a little bit screwed over on certain things as well, understandably. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to see where this new Warmind is going to drop in. Is it going to be the next Taken King? Is it going to be the next Dark Below? Or is it going to be maybe something in between? Those sort of things. My guess would be probably the latter. I don't think we're going to hit probably the same heights as the Taken King till possibly at the next expansion, if they kind of do that. I feel like things they're changing and adding to in this expansion are things which are going to have a big effect on those people who tune in like every week or every day, which is good because they are the kind of core experience of Destiny 2, and I think there's a lot of people who are very casual who have probably walked away from Destiny 2 and have gone on to other things, maybe things like Fortnite or PUBG, stuff like that, and they're not coming back even if someone says, oh, this is a great DLC. They're just probably not going to bother, which is fine. So what are they introducing that we know of? So we know that the new expansion is based around Rasputin, I guess hence the name Warmind. Rasputin's a character who is from the original Destiny 1, he's featured all the way through, and is the kind of like AI Warmind, I guess, that was built to try to protect humans, but for whatever reason is kind of operating under its own kind of, I don't know, its own rules, I guess, its own flag, and I guess maybe we're going to find out a little bit more about that. This time we've seen a new character, Anna Bray, which is going to be, I guess, interesting what we get from her. They always generally introduce new characters, as I said, in these expansions, and some of them are really good, and others are just kind of forgettable. So I really hope they bring somebody in who's interesting, and maybe not just either the stereotypical kind of like, it feels like sometimes they either have the they have like three set things. They either have the really strong and tough person, like I guess a Zavala, or who's the Iron Lord, God, I forgot what his name is now, but they have the like really strong and like tough and serious character, or they have the really jokey character like Cade, or Failsafe, or they have that kind of like really intelligent and like a little bit like quick witted person like an Ikora character. I hope they kind of maybe break from that mould a little bit and bring in something different, I don't know what, but I hope that's what happens, because it feels like the NPCs that we kind of meet and see are just extensions of the three Vanguard, and that is while they're interesting characters, the Vanguard, I want to see something different, come in, and so that could be pretty cool, and certainly if there's interaction between Anna Bray and the others as well, that would be really, really cool. We've got a new patrol space on Mars, so we're going back to Mars. This disappointed a lot of people, because we were kind of going back to somewhere we've been to before. So in Destiny 1 there was a Mars. The one thing I would say is that, from what I know, this is a slightly different area of Mars. I think it's based around the polar ice caps, so it should look different enough, but I do kind of appreciate that there is that kind of like, oh, we're going back there again, and when I think of Destiny 1, Mars is not the place I wanted to revisit. I personally really like Venus, but I guess we'll see. I think Venus is a bit too much like Titan, so maybe they wanted to do something a bit different, but we got Mars anyway. So there's going to be like obviously new story missions, there's new strikes coming in, there's a new raid, layer content for the Leviathan raid named Spire of Stars. So not an entirely new raid, just a new raid layer. I don't really know quite what that is going to entail, but we'll see. The level cap is increasing, and the power level's increasing. And we're getting a new public event named Escalation Protocol, which is like a challenging horde mode, which is something which should test even the top players, because like the public events now are all well and good, but they're so easy, if there's like 2 or 3 of you, even sometimes on your own, they are really easy. And this sounds like it's going to be something that's a real challenge, even if you are at a high level. So that's good, because one of the things I think people have been moaning about for so long about Destiny is that there doesn't feel like there's a real challenge in it once you get to a certain point. And you can make enemies as bullet spongy as you want, but at the end of the day, I think I was watching Dato, who's a kind of famous YouTube kind of Destiny player, and he said the thing, and I totally agree, is that when you're just wandering around these areas, you never feel like you're in danger, and that's something, when you wander around these like open spaces, these patrol spaces, you never once really feel like you're going to be having a problem. The only time you ever really die is probably when you fall off something, or something like that happens. So to have something where maybe you actually feel like you're going to be in danger here is actually going to be really interesting, and seeing how this reacts. Of course, it might be a bit easier to begin with, because I'm sure a lot of people will probably be jumping on it and seeing what goes on with that, but I guess we'll see. We've seen some new exotics which have come in, which look kind of interesting. I won't necessarily go through those now, but certainly there's a few more. I wouldn't say there's anything which is massively sticking out to me as being like, oh, I really want that one, but any new exotics are obviously appreciated. They're bringing back a couple of older ones as well. So Suros Regime is coming back, which I always enjoyed that weapon. It's the auto rifle, which turns to like a scout rifle when you aim down the sights. Decent weapon in Destiny 1, so I'm intrigued to know what they do with it in Destiny 2, whether or not it's going to be as decent. I always used to think it was pretty good in Crucible, as you had that option of being accurate, far away, or like a faster fire rate with a loss of accuracy close up when you hit fire. So I don't think it was the best Crucible weapon or anything like that, but I always used to enjoy it there. So and in PvE as well, I always thought it was quite good to have that option. But things were probably a bit different back then, because then you used to have like on your secondary weapon, you had a lot less options, I think, as to how they've kind of changed it now. So we'll see how it works out, I guess. But yeah, that's interesting. I personally want them to bring back Bad Juju. That was by far my favourite weapon from Destiny 1. I loved that. For those who don't remember, it was a really cool looking pulse rifle that basically reloaded on kills. It was so good. Probably too good. I mean, it wasn't very good in PvP, but in PvE it rocked. And it looked really cool too, so that was great. So yeah, they're kind of bringing that back. They're bringing in exotic masterworks, which really make a difference to the weapon, and kind of for what they've shown, they're going to come in for all the exotics, and this is, I think, really going to be like the pinnacle of the exotic, is if you have the exotic masterwork. And they wanted to make the exotic weapons feel more powerful, which is a good point, because it's okay, I think, to have like exotics which aren't as powerful, or maybe a little bit more for maybe a little bit more specialist for something or other. I think that's perfectly fine. But when generally you feel sometimes like you could just rock 3 legendaries instead of exotics, then I think that gets to a point where you have to turn around and say, are these exotics really that good? And like, when you get to a point where it's, I remember in like Destiny 1 more so, like that exotic space for your weapon was very much sought after, so you used to have to make some really tough decisions to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to take this weapon, but that means I'm not going to use this, I'm not going to use this, even though I really like those weapons. And in Destiny 2, I don't have every exotic, but I've never really ever felt like I'm missing out something because I'm using a different exotic. I only really use, I'm trying to think what exotic I've even got at the minute. I can't even remember. not even sticking out to me. And again, I wouldn't say that they're, I think your exotic weapon's got to be that weapon which really sticks out as, it's the toughest weapon to get generally, and it's I think got to do like the most damage, and it's got to be that one weapon where you're like, ooh, that one slot I get for an exotic, I need to really think about what I'm going to use, because they're all good. So I'm glad that they're making some changes to that, definitely. They're bringing in like a new emote selector as well. That's fine. I don't really care about emotes, I could be honest. And they're bringing in like a new Crucible ranking system, which I think is really good. It's going to be to a point where I like to get like the highest ranking in Crucible for that, I don't know what month or whatever, or however long they do it for. It's going to be really tough, and so I'm happy that. And there's going to be an actual tangible reward in the type of weapon that you're going to get, which you can only get from achieving a certain level in the Crucible, which is really good. And I'm glad they're bringing something in to reward people who are either really good players or people who spend a lot of time with the game. And as somebody who doesn't do that as much, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, because I'd much rather we run on a system where people earn things than people just buy things or get a lucky drop, that is fine that they have that kind of option in there, although you can't really just buy weapons as such, but you can just get lucky on drops, and there's nothing worse than if you've spent like a good couple of hours, I guess, grinding through on Destiny, and maybe you've built up those engrams to a point whereby you're like, right, I really want to get this thing, and then you just don't get it, and you're like, oh, or you just get trash, and you're like, oh. So I'm glad that they've brought in something which is actually like a tangible reward for being good at the game. So that's cool. I'll definitely try and do it myself, and something which actually, I guess, works, because take something like the Hearthstone, when you hit Legend you get that card back, which I guess is cool, because you can say to people, look what I hit, I hit Legend, but it's nothing that really like turns around and goes like, ooh, that's a really cool reward for doing that, whereas this I quite like, because you could turn around and go and like, oh, there's an actual reward that you're going to get, which other people are not going to have, and you can not only show that off, but it's actually going to be really good as well, so that's kind of cool. So it remains to be seen whether or not, I mean, from a personal point of view, I want to see a really good single player experience from this expansion, because that's what I really like about Destiny 2. I'll definitely drop in on Crucible and play that now that it isn't just, I guess, about just playing Crucible for the sake of playing Crucible. Now it's like, oh, I can actually get rewards. I'll definitely play more of it, I think. And yeah, I'll definitely check out the kind of escalation protocols and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things which interest me, but mainly I just want to get a really good, like, solid single player experience. I don't necessarily have to have something which is crazy long, but certainly I certainly 100% feel that Curse of Osiris was way too short. It was really short. I could do that in just a few hours. Like, it was ridiculous. A Taken King was cool because the main story didn't feel hugely long, although it was quite meaty, I guess. I probably like 7 or 8 hours maybe, and then there was a lot of content afterwards, like side content and stuff like that, and obviously just the Dreadnought to explore. So I hope that this Hellas Basin on Mars is a nice big area to explore, lots of like lost sectors and other things to do, and we'll see. As I said, I've always enjoyed Destiny, and jumping back in recently and playing through, you can see that like it does all the basics so well, which is great. There's nothing worse than if a game has all the right things on paper that you see, does everything great, but you play it and you're like, it's just not great to play. You know, if you're going to spend hundreds of hours in a game, which a lot of Destiny players do, you want the game to feel good. You know, priority. And you know, then you can build on it from there. The one thing I would say, now that you know, those listening are probably the more, I guess, hardcore Destiny fans, is I've never really felt like Destiny was a game which was ever intended to be played constantly. So I play other MMOs as well, so I play Elder Scrolls Online, and there's so much content in that game to do that it almost feels like you're never going to finish it. You know, there's so much content in it, masses and massive of content, and it feels like a game which is designed to have you log in every single week to play through. And basically it feels like, unless you're playing like a proper hardcore amount, like 40 hours a week or something, you're not going to outpace the stuff they're dropping. So you know, you might have just about completed the latest expansion by the time the next one comes out, and so on and so forth, unless you're like the super hardcore player. And I feel like Destiny doesn't have that. So I feel like Destiny is more of a kind of like event game. So in other words, oh, there's a new DLC coming out, right, I'm going to jump in there for a month or so and play through, and then every now and then I'll drop back in. I don't feel like it was really designed, or maybe they want people to be in every single day, but I don't think the game has enough content to do that. So when people kind of say, oh, it's the same thing, or oh, I'm bored of the game, because they've been playing like 20 hours a week of it, I kind of think, like, what do you want? Like, you are literally buying a £40 game, and you know, every 3 months or so you're spending like another £25 on an expansion, and you're expecting to be getting like 200 to 300 hours out of that. It's not really a realistic proposal, you know. Even the most hardcore games that you can buy now, like the Witcher 3s or the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, you know, which you bought for 40 quid or 50 quid when they came out, there's, you know, unless you're going really slowly, there's probably like 200 hours of content or something like that in those games, and they're like the super hardcore, you know, sort of games. To expect there to be more than that in Destiny, I feel like it's a little bit unrealistic in people's expectations of the game and what it does. I feel like it's more of a case of, you know, every now and then the DLC will drop, you'll play that, maybe there'll be a special event going on, like the faction rallies, you'll drop in then, maybe there'll be like, you know, a new strike added or something like that, and you'll drop in and play that, and maybe you're dropping in like once a week for a night or something like that with friends, or just on your own and just jotting about. I don't feel like it's a game designed to have people jumping in every single day like an MMO kind of is, to do it. And I think that that's sometimes where the message is a bit skewed, because I think that Activision or Destiny or Bungie are ever going to come out and say, hey, maybe you're playing the game too much, you know. But I kind of feel like they think that sometimes, like maybe your expectation levels of what the game is and what we're actually making is slightly different here, you know. There's plenty of games that I've played where the game will cost me like £40-50, and the main, like, take for example Far Cry, like the main story on Far Cry is what, 15 hours, 12 to 15 hours long. You know, to play through, and sure, you can go around and complete all the little side quests, but essentially probably what you're getting is a 30-hour game, and that cost me the same as like Destiny 2. But for whatever reason, my expectation level in Destiny 2 is that I'm going to be able to play this game constantly. And it's such a weird proposition because I'm paying the same and I'm perfectly happy with Far Cry, you know, and what that's offered me, and yet for some reason people have a problem with what Destiny offers. It's a weird one, I don't know. Maybe it's because it hasn't really done itself any favours, and maybe because it is such a kind of like groundbreaking type of game. Like, there's no other game really like Destiny out there. Maybe you could argue something like Warframe is perhaps similar, but you know, it was groundbreaking at the time. A first-person like shooter MMO is kind of, I guess, what it was billed as. And I think the problem is that when you say that word MMO, people expect hundreds and hundreds of hours of content for what they get. You know, you get that in World of Warcraft, you get that in ESO, you get that in just about any other sort of MMO, you know, large scale, because that's what the game is designed around. But I think Destiny 2 can't quite deliver on that. And then I think there's also been like very poor communications, I think, from Destiny with the big kind of like players of it, the big communities and things like that. And that's definitely something they need to work on if they want people to keep coming back to the game. It is funny, I think, sometimes that like people seem to really hate on Bungie and call them money grabbing and all this type of thing. Like it's okay to say, like, you know, Curse of Osiris was not a good expansion. I don't feel like it's fair to say that Destiny 2 is not a good game. Like, it hasn't really changed beyond recognition from when it released, and everybody loved it when it's released. It's just, I think that people have just played it, and that's it. So I hope that we're gonna get an interesting kind of like update here. I don't feel like we're gonna get something as groundbreaking as a Taken King, with what it was doing and just the fun that I had with that. But you know, if we can get something which maybe gets the ball rolling a little bit, and maybe just have a few more events going on, I think, in Destiny on a, you know, more regular basis, I think they'll start in the track, and then, you know, they can certainly you know, hopefully get the next expansion, you know, improving upon that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll get as good a thing as a Taken King, or hey, maybe we'll get another Curse of Osiris. I really hope not. Yeah, but the one thing I think people can argue about is the fact that, like, Bungie have taken on board what people have said about it, and continued to improve upon that stuff. There's been some steps backwards, but there's been the majority steps forward, I think. You know, if you look at it as a timeline, you know, from Destiny 1, its early DLC, Taken King, the Iron, whatever it's called, I can't remember now. What is it called? Actually, it's going to bug me. Let me have a look. I need to look on my actual channel to find this out, because it's going to bug me if I can't remember the name of it. Lords, I keep wanting to say Lords of Iron. Iron Lords. Doesn't sound right. God, I didn't realise I had so many Destiny videos on my channel. It's quite a lot. Rise of Iron. I knew there was iron in it. The Rise of Iron. Yeah, so with the Rise of Iron, I feel like it wasn't necessarily a big step back from Taken King. It was like a little mini step back. It's good. I actually really enjoyed it. And then I think Destiny 2 was a big jump forward, and then the Curse of Osiris was a big jump back, I think, for a lot of people. It was not good. If we get another Curse of Osiris, you see, this is the thing, I don't know what it would take for me to turn around and be like, I'm done with Destiny. Like, I'm just going to walk away from it now, because it's not that I feel like I've got, like, an involvement in it. I just really enjoy the game. That makes sense. So, I don't feel like, just the day-to-day kind of player of the game, I don't feel like I would, like, if this was bad, I wouldn't bother with the next expansion. But I'd certainly be disappointed anyway. But let me know, guys, what do you think about the game? Whether or not you're going to jump in, I guess, or whether you're going to maybe, you know, wait for reviews, or give this one a miss even, or if you just not bothered with Destiny. But till then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.